Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome back. Market Mondays. I apologize for getting started just a few minutes later. We are excited to include a special guest today. As you guys saw, Blair is going to sit down. I believe it's right there in the title. Blair is going to sit down with Mr. Geoffrey Nance, one of our TRADEway coaches. And so we were just getting that set up. So just a couple minutes behind, but Geoffrey is on. I'm going to bring him up on the screen here in just a second. But this is our Market Monday. So as I always say, let us know where you're from. Linda, I even see your question there. Just wondering if we were going to start or if it had already started rather. So like I said, just a couple minutes behind there, but you can always comment if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, go ahead, comment in there as we're talking through. I'm going to check in with you guys. Okay, I want to know what's happening. We're going to get a chance to look at Geoffrey's journey today. And the whole reason I want to do that is because it gives us the chance to get to know somebody who is helping thousands of our students do the very thing that I know you guys want to learn to do. But if we listen to his story, watch his journey a little bit, hopefully we can catch some things out of that journey that we can then use in our own. Okay, so I'm going to check in with you guys. David, I see you there from Oklahoma. If you want to drop a quick comment, give me your name. Let me know where you're from, and I would love to see it. I know we've got our regulars, our usuals on here all the time. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and bring Geoffrey in on the stream. There he is. Geoffrey, you can hear me okay?
Gotcha.
All right. I was going to say, let's make sure I can hear you okay, but looks like you're coming through my speaker, not my headphones. Not a worry at all. Howdy from a smoky Colorado Springs, says Geoffrey. Geoffrey's with us every time. Love that. Love seeing you there. Portland, Oregon. We got people all over the place, Geoffrey. It's interesting seeing this now. I mean, Geoffrey's been around for a while. So for those of you who've been with us for a while, TRADEway, we used to go, when we actually traveled, seems like a long time ago. We used to go around the country to different cities, so we were very used to getting to know people from those areas. But even pre-COVID and Zoom and all this stuff, TRADEway has really started to do just a lot more stuff for you guys online. So we're getting people from all over the place, and you guys are dropping comments there. I can see that. Geoffrey, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. Sorry for being late, people. I was telling Blair I've got a kid who can be old enough to work, but not committed enough to get his driver's license and learn how to drive. So I had to take him to work at the same time this was supposed to start, and thought I was going to be close, and I was pretty close.
You were pretty close.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's honestly, that sets us up, I think, because we've got a lot of people out there today that is not unfamiliar, right? And that is part of what I want to talk about today. If you're somebody who maybe has a lot of excess time or is making big decisions about life, maybe I want to learn this stock trading thing. Well, what if we're further down the road than that? Your story, I know your story. It's a little bit different. You already had a family. You're already, you were already down that road. I know you were in the ministry, and we're going to talk about things like that. But then trading came into your world, and it's something that you have had to balance everything and learn how to accelerate and excel at it in the midst of a crazy family life.
Yeah, Blair. I would venture to say that my journey is going to be different than anybody else's. As far as those that have joined the company through the years, don't know if you mentioned or not, but I've actually been with the company now for almost a decade, which makes me one of the elder statesmen, if you will, here. I've seen people come and go through the years, and my background is in ministry, like you mentioned. So I was called to ministry when I was actually in the 8th grade. That summer, that year, very, very clearly, and pursued that, so people would say, because they kind of knew. And in high school early on, they're like, all right, so, we're getting close to graduation. What do you think you're going to do? I'm like, same thing I told you I was going to do. It's not really a choice, man. When you get called, you either go, or you guys have read that story about Jonah, right? So I was like, I'm going into ministry, right? So I pursued that at Baylor, got my degree there, and started doing youth and worked at a couple of churches while I was there. Went off to seminary, got the degree there, worked at a few churches there, and then I spent time Florida, Texas, moved over to Corsicana. We thought there was a good opportunity there to do some neat things. Turned out to be one of the most frustrating year and a half worth of ministry that I might have ever had. And ended up kind of, more or less parting ways, mostly because they wanted me to do so. And, one of the reasons that they didn't want me to stay there is because I had a very different philosophy of ministry and what that looked like. And so I actually wanted the youth to study their Bible. I wanted to be a part of their lives on a daily basis. And some of the people there, surprising enough, inside the church thought that was just too much. Their youth needed to do more playing, less Bible studying. And so David wanted to meet a guy who got fired for trying to do too much Bible study. And
sounds like the kind of guy David would be interested in meeting.
Yeah. So we sat down, and he said, would you think about coming to our little financial seminar? And his wife had been doing some stuff with my wife. She used to make these like designer cakes, and Charlotte would come by and would with her oldest daughter, and they'd watch Brandy do this and try to do it on their own with their kids. And she would tell me, she's like, oh, my husband teaches this financial seminar. When you're in ministry, the only seminars you go to are ministry related. And if you go to a financial seminar, I'll sum it up for you. Spend less money, save more. That's the plan. When you're in ministry, you have that's your two-pronged plan to get more money. Stay in the ministry long enough, see if they'll give you a raise, spend less, save more. Like that was
okay.
it.
All right. So this is good. All right. Let me stop you there for a second, because there's a lot there that I want people to catch. Okay. So a couple of things. Number one, now Geoffrey probably would not say this way. I don't know. Maybe he would, but I will. Is that, one thing I've learned about Geoffrey, and I think you guys out there would be pleased to hear this. Certainly, I think this is a quality we can all aspire to, and we all have strengths and weaknesses. And I think this is one of Geoffrey's strengths. Geoffrey is just not going to do something that he cannot fully get behind. If it is not 100% on the level, he cannot get behind it. And he will actually pay a price to follow that conviction. On the other hand, if he is 100%, that is true, or that is right, or that is real, well, you better believe that's going to be something that's on his mind and on his heart. I think that's important. Especially, where we're at. Geoffrey's about to get into this subject, which I want to come back to, of just what is it like when, especially as Christians, or even as a minister, as a pastor, especially, we start to talk about finances. Now, I want to come back to that in a minute. But again, I think that's a quality about one of our TRADEway coaches right here, Geoffrey, that is really, really quite important. And some of you guys out there, you will relate to this story, even though Geoffrey said this is pretty unique. Some of you guys out there, you go, well, that's true. But I feel like I have a unique story too. You're already on the track. You're doing what God has called you to do. But maybe you hit a roadblock. Maybe you hit a fork in the road. Maybe you hit a brick wall, whatever the case might be. And you knew, or that transition is here, and there's something else, and there's got to be something else. And I think as Geoffrey mentions, David and Charlotte, which would be David Mitchell, the founder of this company, and his beautiful wife, Charlotte, the Lord really orchestrated that for you, Geoffrey, where you came across paths with them. So now let's dive in. I was already queued up, ready. I wanted to ask more about what you were just about to talk about, financial seminars or learning. It's going to be one of two things, or it's going to be those two things, and that's exactly it.
Yeah. So she had asked me several times, and I was like, no, I'm not going to that seminar. I can tell you what it's going to be. I don't even have to go. So no, I'm not going.
Right.
Well, over the course of time, we, after leaving that church and meeting with David, I went and sat there for 2 days and left and came back home. And my wife was like, "Well, how was it?" I said, "Well, that was different." I
So
said,
what got you going that time? Why did you go
well,
that time?
so yeah, we were in that transitional period. And so I was like, you know what? Sure, let's go. I mean, I think I know what it's going to be about, but why not? Let me go check it out. Because
Right.
my plan at that point, Blair, was to go and start a church. Now, at that particular time, we had about a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Okay.
So, 3 young kids, and starting a church is ridiculously hard work. But I really thought, you know what, that's a good opportunity for me to go and start a church. We can just ground up. People will know from the start what the expectations are, and get on board with this and just be like, this is who we are. This is what we're about. So I was going to work with a big church in Waco and do that. And then David met with me and said, what would you think about coming to work for our church here and being an associate pastor and doing some stuff with the company was a different name back then. And I said, I don't think so. I mean, since the 8th grade, I've been in ministry, and you
Right.
don't get
Okay.
paid. I was like, I don't even know how that works exactly, but that's not something I do. Like I'm like Paul. Like Paul made tens, but he got paid, and he says you can get paid, and I'm like, yes, that's me. I'm getting paid for doing this stuff. And as we prayed about it more, I said, you know what, we'll just go, and we'll just go. And then I went, and I came back, and I told Brandy, I said, Brandy, that was crazy. Like that was so different than what I thought it was going to be. Like they actually showed me how to make money. I've never been to a conference where they showed me how to make money. Again,
Right.
it was always about
Right.
you need to spend less and you need to save more. And now all of a sudden we're like, well, you can actually make money. I'm like, the only way I knew how to make money was to go get a job. So this whole idea of being an entrepreneur, I'm like, I'm not an entrepreneur. I go to work for people.
Right. Yes.
So
Paradigm.
it was so shocking to me, and the thing that stuck out to me, and to this day is still the biggest draw to me is I came back and I showed her this chart and I said, I don't know if what they're saying is true, but apparently, if I can learn how to read this chart, I can know whether the market is going to go up or down and whether a stock is going to go up or down. I said, if that's true, how in the world has nobody else ever told me about that before? Because I'm blown away by the possibility that that could even be right. And here I am 10 years later, and I'm sitting here going, actually, that was even more
Yeah.
impressive than I realized. Like I just had no clue. Like to me, that whole idea that you could time the market, like that you could know what the market was going to do on a regular basis, and then to realize that what I thought was true, and now to see that played out on a regular basis. And not only can you know what it's going to go up and down, if you get really good at this, you can actually know where it's going. So, I mean, sometime this week, I'm walking a select group of people through a process where I'm going to show them how to know where a stock is going to go, just off of two movements. So they'll be able to have a really good idea of where their target price would be. And we're going to be using that chart. And I mean, I draw lines and I try to draw them very accurately. And I just did a seminar with hundreds of people. It was a free thing. Hundreds of people were on there. And it's just a really cool experience, just showing you what drawing lines could be. So it was
Yes.
even
Yes.
better than I realized, but it's pretty amazing because people think, well, how did you get to that point? Well, I mean, it wasn't my background. Okay.
Right. Right. No,
There was
that's
not a
important.
seminary course where they're like, here's how the stock market works. But there wasn't anything like that.
Exactly. Exactly. So I was going to ask you even a second ago. So you're in the event. you're seeing them, essentially, you're learning in one of TRADEway's introductory courses at the time, how do I make sense of something that's never really made sense to me? And maybe some of us can relate. We've never even learned enough about the stock market to go, that doesn't even make sense. We didn't even get that far. You know, that's
Yeah.
how little we're taught at times. So tell me a little about, you're in this event, or you're going home to your wife Brandy and you're saying, if what they showed me, if I could do that, this thing is on. How did you feel about being somebody who didn't have that background and considering actually learning how to do that? Because you didn't have any background doing it before. So
No.
it's a very new thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had money in the market. I mean, I had a 403B, with the churches, and then I had a mutual fund set up from when I was in, like college or something. But I mean, I pretty much just sat there and tried to figure out why the numbers were going up and down. And like that was the extent of, oh
Right,
man,
right,
why are they losing money? I thought they were supposed to know what they're doing. But I mean, I didn't know the whole market was going down. I didn't even know the honestly, like I put my money in there and my thought was, I'm going to give this to you. And they showed me this chart of what it would be like in like 30 years or whatever. I'm like, I mean, I'm here as a teenager going, sounds good. Let's
right.
do that, and
Okay.
I just thought, well, that's what you do. You go give them a chunk of money and then it magically grows and they give you more somewhere down the line. So that was the extent of my investing experience. So, I mean, I kind of just thought, well, the way they presented it, they make it seem easy enough. And then I tried. And what I found on my first two trades, the first one, because I didn't say this, but I'm an ultra competitive. So back in the
Second thing
day,
about Geoffrey, I can vouch for for
back in
everybody
the
out
day,
there.
yeah, I was a little bit of an athlete and actually won some pretty decent awards and stuff like that. And I mean, I wasn't the most gifted athlete, but man, I'm not sure there were many people that hated losing more than I did. And so trading was one of those things where I assumed here was the thing, Blair. So if there were certain sports where I could play, and if I could play it, then I was going to try to be really good at it. But if I didn't like it, I was like, I'm not good at this. So I'm not, I would just, I'd not even play it. I'm like, nah, not good at that. Like I went and played golf and
Right,
I was like, nah, I'm not good at that. Forget it. I don't care enough to learn. But the stuff that I was wanted to do, I wanted to be not just good, I wanted to be really good at what I was doing. So when I started trading, I had that same mentality. I was like, well, you got to be good at this because it's a competition. Like everything is a competition. Like you've got to win, and winning meant, making money, providing for your family, doing things and then being able to give back to ministry and support. And it's just like all
right.
these things. So you're like,
Yeah.
well, you've got to be good for those reasons. Right. And so I just figured I'd win. I'll pray about it. God will bless my efforts, and it'll be great. Well, my first trade was an expense, and then my second trade was just a. I mean, like you could go back and look at it and be like, that is a great rolling stock, which kind of just moves up and then down and just right off of these lines. And
Right.
well, I got in and I waited and it just didn't work. And then I got out. And I'm not kidding you. The day after I got out, that thing did exactly what it was supposed to do. And I remember being so hacked off. I was like, are you kidding me? Now that I got out, it's going to work. Is that how this is going to be? Like, just do the opposite of whatever Geoffrey does? Because that was, I mean, I just assumed you're 0 for 2, man. Like that's not good. So, I mean, I remember getting into a play and then it just worked really well that next one. And I was like, well, okay, well,
Okay.
now we're talking. And so
Proof
I
proof
had
of
a big
concept.
win. I had a big win for me right at that time. And I remember thinking, okay, so now I've seen it work. I just got to figure out what I'm doing. Like, how can I do it better? And that's when I sat down and I'm just telling you, I spent a lot of time, like a lot of hours, just studying the charts, just going, look, if this is the thing that I thought was important, then I better get good at understanding this. And I did. I sat down, and what I started to realize is it was something that God wanted me to do, and I had just kind of a natural ability to see certain things, but it took me a while. It wasn't like I sat down in that first week, I'm like, oh, I'm an expert at this stuff. But there were things that I learned over time. There were lessons I learned. I tell people that when I teach these seminars, I said, look, there's a reason they call it trial and error and not trial and success. Because most of the time when you're trying to figure something out on your own, you figure out a lot of things that don't work while you're trying to figure out what will. And I did. I'm a, some people say that I'm a little hard-headed. It runs in my family. Every male in my family has been, and even the ones that say they aren't will be the worst probably. And it's just so I didn't like to ask for help. I'm like, I'm not telling him, and that actually ended up being a really bad thing because I lost a lot of money. Now, and so I was on this massive roller coaster, and
boom and bust.
Yeah, it was just pride because I was like, I'm not going to go ask for, help on this and let him know that I don't really know what I'm doing, So
Right.
There's a lot of lessons that I learned along the way.
Totally. So, I mean, and you and I have talked about this before. I mean, we get exposure to a lot of students who are learning to do this, right? Some are in our program, some aren't in our program. But one way or the other, they end up paying for their education, right?
Yeah, it's a good point.
And so you're going to be in a few different groups, guys. You're going to be in the group that ends up, like Geoffrey even shared, like I don't need any help with this. I believe this can work. I'm just going to go at it. But when you don't have the people around you to help you see some of those blind spots or leverage what they already know, and you can't get that strength in, then you kind of robbed yourself of acceleration and of some breakthrough. And along the way, there's a good chance that there's going to be a lot of expenses. There's going to be some money lost. So there's that group. There's the group that's just, gonna do that and then eventually go, okay, I can't do this anymore. And I'm gonna get some help on there. Or the third group is, I'm just gonna get some help from the get-go. I'm just gonna get some help from the get-go because I want to make it, but I don't need to be in either of those previous groups. So I think that's a really good thing to share with us, Geoffrey, because it can help some people know either where you're at and just really where would you like to be? Because I was going to jump in and say, I can tell you got something you want to add.
Yeah.
You had people around you. You did have some people around you, and they did ultimately help you get. For those of you don't know, you haven't heard Geoffrey teach. Geoffrey's one of our advanced coaches. He runs one of our most advanced programs at TRADEway. Advanced in what we do, but also in where we're aiming to get people, right? The goals that they have. So he's come a long way, and that wouldn't be possible without the people that have helped you get there along the way too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to realize that no matter what your subject material is, you should always be in a place where you feel like you need to keep learning. That there's always more to learn. And like you mentioned, I mean, I work with some of our highest performing students in the entire program. And there are still things about trading that I don't know. There are things that I can still learn. And this is after 10 years of doing that and teaching people at a high level. So, whatever level you're at, you have to realize that you have to keep pursuing. You kind of have to keep pursuing knowledge, but it can't just be knowledge either. When I was in college and seminary, I took essentially the equivalent of basically like 3 years of Greek and Hebrew. So
okay.
No, 5 years of Greek and Hebrew. So what's crazy about that is if you know much about Greek at all, you actually know more than I do probably right now. So basically,
because you haven't applied it.
And even when I took it, I couldn't apply it, Blair. I got behind, and I thought, well, I'll catch up. I didn't catch up. I got further behind, and I mean, basically worked out an agreement with my teacher, and he's like, all right, if you get this exactly right, I had to parse this verb like 162 times exactly correct in every single form. And I studied that for
Wow.
hours and hours. And that's what got me out of that when I was at Baylor. So once I got to seminary, I did better there, but still, it was just like, I have no idea. I mean, I just don't know it. Hebrew. I mean, I made an A in every single Hebrew class I took. To me, it just clicked. It made more sense, and I was able to do it. In fact, I could open up the Hebrew Bible right now and still make out some of the words and read through it a little bit, but not
Okay.
like I could. It's amazing to me how much older I am than when I was in seminary now. That would be almost 20 something years ago now, Blair. Yeah, because I just don't use it as much. So I would encourage you guys to realize that whatever stage you're in, two things are going to happen to you. You're either going to keep learning and growing, or you're going to stop. And one of the things I always tell people is I don't know whether you will be a successful stock trader or not, but I do know that everybody who quits trading stocks will not be successful trading stocks. So if you want to be a successful stock trader, one of the things that you have to do is to not quit. So you have to keep going. And one of the things I tell them is, I think one of the things that hinders our people as they move forward in their trading journey, and I like to call it a journey, by the way, and I don't flippantly use that word. I really do think it's a journey. Bible talks a lot about journeys, and one of the things that I would say is you have to keep moving forward.
Yes.
And you can't let your fear of failure be greater than your drive for success. So I think for a lot of people, because they're afraid to fail, they're afraid to try to succeed. And oftentimes that is one of the biggest hindrances to people succeeding, is that they think they might fail. Well, of course you will if you don't try, but we don't see it that way, because like, well, I didn't try. So I might have been the best, Quidditch player ever in the world. Like, well, I've never even played it. And if my kids hadn't mentioned it from Harry Potter or whatever, I wouldn't even know what it is. But the point is, I don't know if I'm good at it or not, because I've never played it. So it's kind of irrelevant if I would be or wouldn't be, because I haven't put in any time or effort to try it, to learn how to do it. But if I want to be great, then I better learn, and then I better go practice. And that's what I did, Blair. And I did a lot of that. I mean, I really sat down with a chart, and I have spent a lot of time going through charts. And one of the things that you mentioned that I think is great is, having been here with the company for so many years, is being able to see all the great changes we made in our presentations, and the access that we have to you guys, and the online ability that you have to take classes and learn stuff. Like,
Yes, to get that access.
Really is phenomenal.
Yeah, to get that access, where, because Geoffrey, he already said in his story, guys, like, he moved to Corsicana. He lived in the TRADEway epicenter, if you will. But I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, and I can see you guys, Ruben, Geoffrey, Gustavus, David. I can see you guys in there just posting where you're from. By the way, Geoffrey, I don't know if you saw that. Gustavus is saying, I am totally the opposite. Greek was easy for me. So maybe.
And I met people like that struggle with Hebrew and were really good at Greek. And I was like, I don't know what's wrong with you, man.
and we find that in trading. We find that in anything, right?
Like,
where
I'll
certain
teach you
people
how to do Hebrew, but you can help me out with the Greek stuff. But yeah, it's just
so for our people. Sorry, for our people out there, I just want you to catch that fact. Geoffrey laid that out for us, but we said at the top of the broadcast, we've got people from all over the place. But now what we can do, and I know this is what Geoffrey was just saying, we have something set up now where our students, no matter where they are, no matter what time it is, they're able to access an incredible wealth of our material, our experience, our coaching, our mentorship at any time, from anywhere, like never before. And I think that important piece in Geoffrey's story of being able to have those voices around him to not only help him know what to do, but when he decided, I'm going to keep going. I say this on the broadcast sometimes, Geoffrey, we've got to be people who persevere. There's character in perseverance. But when we persevere without wisdom, when we just persevere and don't stop, eventually we need something new in the equation. Otherwise, the perseverance starts to get heavy. It starts to get to weariness. It starts to get to be like, I'm not quitting, but I'm not breaking through. What we can help you do, and what Geoffrey's story illustrates beautifully, is that when you combine that, then you have the power to really be moving, and you can avoid that second group I talked about earlier, where you're just paying the stock market for your education, you know? So, okay. So on that note, another question I wanted to ask you, Geoffrey, this 10-year journey, starting out, taking that risk, going to that class, not really sure what this is going to be, less exposure probably than maybe even some of our folks on here today have, because, they've been joining us online, and you've been on that journey. So what does TRADEway really mean for you today? Your role at TRADEway specifically is coaching those students, but when you just think about what we get to do here and the individuals that we have on the broadcast today, what does TRADEway really mean to you? Because, this, one of the questions that we sometimes, in fact, I haven't personally heard this for a while, but we used to get this more. Geoffrey, if you could trade, then why be here? Why be a coach? Why come on this broadcast with Blair for an hour when you're at home with your family tonight?
Yeah, and again, you can do both, and we've clearly seen that that's capable. For me, Blair, it's being able to combine a couple of things. So that first year when I decided to go and be part of the Park Meadows Church, and I told David, I said, David, and I've been in ministry a long time, this whole place is smaller than like my smallest youth ministry when I left there. I was like, what's going on? And when we got to see God do some really cool things, and that church did grow, and then it was time for us to move on. So I'm not there anymore. We moved, built a house about 40 miles away. But my intention was to come and work for a bit, and again, one of the things that we found about Park Meadows was very different than the church that I had just left. People liked each other. They weren't fighting. Nobody was trying to jockey for position.
Yes.
And it was healing. So my plan was to stay a year, see what's available, send out the resumes again, and then we'll be in a spot to move. And after a year, I realized, what, we talk about the Bible, and every one of these things that we teach, we get to minister to people, and then we're getting to teach them about finances. And so they can learn how to do this stuff and really make a difference for their family and for generations to come. And I'm kind of getting on board with that. I went to my wife. I said, do you like it here? She goes, yeah. She liked the school our kids were attending. And I said, I guess we'll just stay then. Let's just stay another year. And that second year turned into the third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh. And at some point, it really just became, what, I can do ministry here, and I'm skilled at this, so I can help other people learn how to do this from a biblical perspective. I can teach them what the Bible does say about money. I can teach them some things that they probably heard that maybe aren't actually really what the Bible says about money. What if I can combine these things and do something I like? Why would I not keep doing this? And that's why we've stayed, because we've seen lives be impacted. We know that people have been able to accomplish certain things, and then they get so excited, and then we get excited, and
yes,
and then we get to share. I mean, we get to do life together, which I think is an important part of it. And one of the things that you guys, if you haven't been to one of our live events, especially one of our big live events, I mean, it will feel like people are part of a family, and we don't really take that lightly. I mean, you will see people hugging and hanging out and talking to each other and picking up like they were old friends at a reunion, is what it's going to be like, next year when we start doing
especially after all of this. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So those two things, man, the ability to continue to preach the word, even to a wider audience, because if you're teaching a select group in a certain city, you have some width there, but it kind of, unless they permeate out, you're kind of stuck. But with us, well, what we do, people can, hear certain things and be like, I'm going to go talk to my pastor about this. And then they spread that to their Sunday school group. And then I'm going to go talk to this guy. And what I found is that in some ways we have more biblical influence through this than we had from any one church. And so it's
Very
really that
interesting.
combination of being able to help people with something that I realize God has blessed me. I can do this well. And then also combine the ministry aspects and really just help people see a biblical view of money and how it's different than what they might have heard in the past. So combining those things just makes a lot of sense to me
That's
to
awesome.
stay here and do it for a while.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I feel like, we can sometimes we get stuck in this idea that life is just either or, and God is so kind. He finds a way to do both and so many times. And I just think that's part of his character and generosity. All right. I want to follow up. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit with this one.
Okay.
I want to follow up on what you just said. So you get the opportunity to trade and do that, but you also get the opportunity to have, if you will, an outreach to the church in this area of finances in a way that you would not, at least not to this degree. And that's something that's important to you. I know that's important to you. Certainly that's important to me too. That's a part of what we do here at TRADEway. So let me ask you, what would you say for our folks listening? We're going to have a lot of folks listening on recording as well. So to everybody out there, what would you say for you is one of the biggest lies? What is one of the biggest financial lies that you find, either maybe along the journey, the last 10 years, or that today you would say, this is probably, there's maybe a few, but this is the most important thing. This is what I am encountering, and this is actually a lie. And I have an opportunity here to say, no, that's actually not true. We're over here, but we could be over here.
Yeah, I think one is this idea that somehow twofold. I would say the biggest financial fable easily is the you can't time the market thing. Like, no, I mean, I couldn't even. We don't have the time for me to go through and show
that's
you.
That's why I'm laughing. Yeah.
I mean, how many times I'm like, look at this line, people. It's about to move down off of that, and then it just drops off. Oh, this one's at support. It ought to go up. And I'm not saying it works every time because we do these study groups on Sunday and Monday night, and not everything does exactly what we think. But man, it too many times. Right. I mean, sometimes almost to the the penny or to just you can get it so closely, almost exact to where it's going to pivot off of that. That's the biggest thing. And then for Christians in particular, I would say it's just combating this idea that somehow, and I've even heard this. I had people again in churches tell me, well, we don't want you to make too much money. We need to keep you humble. It's somehow that if Christians have money, all of a sudden they just go wild and like, who needs Jesus? I got money.
Yes.
Right, yes. God called me to this, but yeah, that's totally what I would do.
Listen, if you're out there today and you just connected with that, man, drop something in the comments. I want to hear from you guys. Go ahead, Geoffrey.
So, I mean, I heard that. I heard people saying that, and I think that's something we need to combat because when we used to go, I'd be at step one and say, guys, what would you guys do if you had more money? And inevitably, right, we're sitting in a room full of Christians. They're like, I would give more money to my church. I would start this ministry. I would give to this missionary. I would go fund this. And I'm like, awesome. Then let's do that. So, if the money is the only thing keeping you from doing that, then don't wait till you have the money to start doing it. Because I think that's the next big thing that I would say is that people feel like they want to do something, but they won't do it till they get to X amount of money. Here's what I'd say, and I have said to people, if you're not tithing now, then you won't be tithing later when you have more money. You might be tipping, but you won't be tithing. Because when the zeros get added onto the check, you're going to be sitting there thinking, I don't know what I could do with that check that I'm about to write right there.
Yes.
So you have to ask yourself, well, whose money is it? So if you believe that God is going to use this as an avenue to bless you, your family, your church, other people, then start being that blessing now.
It's a good word,
we
guys.
all know the story where rich people are just clanging money and just going so they can hear it drop. One lady comes in, drops everything she has, and that's the one Jesus points out. So those other people gave a ton more. But the one that Jesus saw was the one who said, I got this, and it was such a big portion of what she said. And when we think, oh, she gave everything she had as if like she went broke. I mean, that's not smart either, right? To give everything away and be like, oh, sorry, kids, we're not eating for the next month or two because I gave them money. Like Paul even says that if you're married, you have certain responsibilities. You're supposed to take care of your family. The Bible is such a practical book. It really is.
Right.
But even when it comes to money. And so what I would encourage you guys to do is to realize, look, if I have grand plans of what I would do if I had more money, then start doing little things with the little that you have now, and you will already be set up to just keep adding zeros to those checks if that blessing comes.
That's great. Hey, that's a good word for all of us, myself included, because, you know, no matter where you are on the journey, and a lot of what Geoffrey's story was today, you know, behind it all is trust. It's going to come down to trust. And if you don't build that muscle here, you're not just magically going to have it over here. You might have some other things going on at that point as well. So that's a good word. Exactly what I was looking for, Geoffrey, just to hear your thoughts on that. I think that really blessed a lot of people. Two more things, okay? Two more things that we're going to land this plane. I want to give the folks out there something special. I've mentioned a few times today, you know, Geoffrey's a fantastic trader. I've learned a lot from Geoffrey. I've mentioned on this broadcast before, I used to live in Corsicana as well. I was there for just over 3 years. So Geoffrey and I got to sit about 5.5 feet apart for a long time, and we definitely were able to have some good times, and I learned a lot from him. So just, you know, even though we don't necessarily have charts up and we haven't been deep diving in that today, maybe just give everybody out there today, you know, what's a number one trading tip right now? People who are just getting started, you know, they've been on this channel a little bit. We've looked at some charts. We've looked at some market tone. We haven't done the deep dive on that. But what's just something from you that you would say, hey, guys, if I had one thing for you today that I wanted you to know, what would that be?
Yeah, man, it's tough. So I really tried to figure out what's one, and I got it down to two, which
okay,
that's not bad, right? So
people are going to be that. Hey, it's a double portion for everybody out there today.
Two things. One, you have to realize that some of what we're teaching you is so great, right? And everybody wants to come into this to make money. Obviously, it's a for-profit business, but you have to learn how important it is that when a play is not going to work like you expected it to, that you have to be willing to stop out and lose little. Because if you dig a bigger hole, it takes a lot longer to climb out of it. And I think that's been through the years coaching a lot of our students. Probably the biggest mistake that they've made is kind of getting in over their head and then putting too much into trades before they were ready. And then they end up having big expenses, and they didn't get out because it was pride. They weren't following the rules. And so they ended up taking big expenses, which are hard to overcome. So I would say it's super important to realize the importance of stopping out and having a plan. And then number two, I would say just understand the why. Okay, understand the why. And what do I mean by that? Why is this stock doing what it's doing? Why is the market doing what it's doing? Because if you can start to ask yourselves those questions, you'll start a journey that will lead to more education. And you're going to learn a lot on your own, and you will be inclined to want to go learn more through other people. So start to understand the why things are happening. So when it comes to charting, everybody knows I am a big proponent of charting, probably the biggest in the entire company. I believe like just massively in how important charting is. But part of the reason it's important is knowing the why. Like it's a pivot point. Well, why this stock was going down 2 minutes ago? Why is it going up? A week ago, this stock was going down. Why is it now going up? Why is the market still going up? Why is it not dropping? Why is it going up when it should be going down? Figure out those whys, because to me, that journey to figure out the why behind those things is going to lead you to your greatest discoveries and when it comes to trading.
That's okay. So I hope everybody out there, you're going to get access to this recording. This is going to be automatically posted when we're done. There's some good wisdom there. I want you guys to catch that, because, you know, ultimately we tell people all the time, if you want to be a stock trader, you're going to have to learn to be a good loser. And what Geoffrey just described is what that actually means, right? You actually have to learn to do that. And these are some of the things, some of the parts of the process that we're going to take you guys through. Okay, this takes time, and these are the things we help you discover and walk through. If you knew the why that Geoffrey just talked about, then we're going to show you how to execute the what. If I know why it's doing what it's doing, then what do I need to be doing? And how do I do it? And how do I do it over and over again? And that is exactly what we're here to do. Okay, now I said two things. That is one. Lastly, Geoffrey mentioned about maybe 20 minutes ago now, he said, if you get a chance to come to our events. Now, he was talking about our live events, which TRADEway is going to do live events again when we're able to. Obviously, during the COVID-19 pandemic, that's not something we're able to do right now, at least by and large. So we have an event coming up. I know Geoffrey has been in some planning as of recent for this very thing. So we're excited. I am going to drop a link for this specific event as soon as the broadcast is done. But we've got our annual summit coming up, Geoffrey, October 1st to 3rd. Okay, Geoffrey, you're going to be teaching a lot of sessions at this summit.
I shall be.
Yes. So Geoffrey will be there. I will be there. All of our TRADEway coaches. Now, when Geoffrey talks about these live events, specifically our big ones, he's talking about this annual summit. So we're going to be doing that for you guys online. And we haven't officially launched the registration for this event yet. So this is actually early bird, okay? We're opening up the early bird pricing for our Market Monday people today. So we will post that link for you, and it's going to tell you exactly what you need to do to be a part of that summit. I want to tell you specifically, this year's theme is the acceleration of your trading. How do we accelerate your trade? So even Geoffrey's Journey, would you like to spend 3 days with Geoffrey and go, there's 10 years of experience, 10 years of the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat? You know what I'm saying? All rolled into one, so that you can take more of the one and not so much of the other, right? And leverage that for yourself. That's the whole point. That's what we're doing here. That is going to be our annual summit, accelerating your trading. Okay, Geoffrey, if you have anything to add to that, go ahead and do that, and then we'll go ahead and we'll sign off here. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. I can see our numbers on here. You guys have been sticking with us the whole way. Everybody who's commented in there, I can see that. So thank you, guys. Geoffrey?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I mean, I think this is something that is really cool that Blair is doing with you guys, just opportunities to continue to grow at different levels. But if you get a chance to I say this every time, Blair, now, is take the next step, whatever that is for you. Figure out what the next step is and keep going forward. Keep going forward.
Yes.
And that's what I would just encourage you guys with. Just keep going forward, whatever that looks like for you. Keep moving forward, because you just have no clue what's out there. And sometimes, the disciples, some of these guys, they were professional fishermen. They fished all night, didn't catch a thing. Then this guy on the shore is like, why don't you try the other side? I mean, can you imagine that? You're a professional fisherman going, thanks for the hint, buddy. Yeah, like we haven't tried that. They do it, and then all of a sudden, boom, this bountiful harvest. Why? Because they were open and the timing was right. And so I just encourage you guys to realize that God knows the timing and God knows the future. We don't, but we can trust him and we can trust his timing. And he does want us to continue pursuing him and pursuing opportunities like this. So I just want to encourage you guys to take advantage of that.
It's beautiful, right? In Geoffrey's story, what if he hadn't ever gone to that event, right? That one step, just that next step. I do want to there is one question here, and then we're going to go ahead and sign off. Mario says, is there a difference between a good loser and a bad loser? Geoffrey, what do you want to say to that quick?
Well, yeah, real quick. we say treat this like a business, and we call these expenses, what we call the plays that don't make money expenses. But I used to ask people, what's the difference between an expense and a loss? And then I would jokingly say, well, did it make you cry? So how bad was it? How big was it? Right? Was it something you weren't going to tell your spouse about? That kind of thing. And then what I realized is, Jeffrey, it's funny, but it's not right. Why? Because every business has expenses. So you're going to sell a product, you got to make a product, you got to go get materials, you got to sell it. So an expense is something that you are going to use to make your business more profitable. So yeah, is there a difference between a good loss and a bad loss? Did you learn anything from that? Because if you did, that could be something that could make you profitable in the future. Again, every expense is supposed to lead to something profitable. So either you change your mindset, you change your product, you change something about the delivery. You do those things with your trading. And the idea is that these expenses are going to make me a better trader. So in the future that I will have a profit, though I did not have it this time. So the losses need to be considered as expenses so that they're positive. I mean, nobody likes losing money. And I still hate it, right? But I do realize that each time that happens, I need to see what can I learn from this and what can I do differently and better in the future.
That's great. I hope you get this, guys. I've said this before, and I'll finish with this today. We're not doing fluff here, right? We're actually going through the process of really helping folks get to the goals. We cannot do that with formalities and niceties. We're digging into the specifics of what does it take to be a trader and everything that goes on along that way. Well said, Geoffrey. Thanks so much for being on today, man. Taking an hour away from your family here and joining us. Everybody out there who joined us, stuck around, thank you as well. We are back on Wednesday. We always do our Wednesday Wisdom. That's going to be at the same time, same channel, and we'll be back on Market Mondays next week, guys. Thanks so much, Geoffrey. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
All right.